Thank you for that video, and I'd officially like to welcome you to No Time to Wait. Now that we've got a recap of where we are, I just want to say thank you so much for being here in person and having patience with some of our tech difficulties. And also for everyone who's watching online from across the world, different time zones, thank you for tuning in today. We really appreciate you being here. I just want to talk a little bit more about our theme and how we got about choosing our theme for this year. So, our theme this year is de-blur, as you saw, and it's all about clearing up stigma and misconceptions about HIV. De-blur means revealing, inspiring, and exchanging knowledge so youth can step up as visionary leaders and advocates in their communities. And the idea here is that there's still stigma and misconceptions. Also, many young people don't have a clear or even correct picture of HIV, as well as relevant topics like sexual health, consent, and harm reduction, which we're going to be touching on in sessions today. Also, it often isn't even clear to young people how they can be advocates themselves and where they can start as youth in their communities. Unfortunately, things are still blurry for many young people. And for progress to be made towards goals like zero new HIV infections, we want to help clear things up, you get it with the de-blur, clear things up, and prepare young people to be a source of clarity for other people in their communities. De-blur is for everyone, even if you are new to the space or maybe you're a seasoned advocate. For example, today I see Marvelous from Vive in the audience, an example of a seasoned advocate. So de-blur applies to everyone. You can learn new things every day, but you can also help other people de-blur things for themselves. So actually right now, I want to get into a little bit of a Mentimeter so everyone can get warmed up and thinking about the content for today. So we are going to put the Mentimeter on screen, and we're going to have a QR code for you to scan. There's also going to be a link and a code you can type in if you are unable to scan. So we're going to take a minute and make sure we get the Mentimeter on screen. Okay, so we've got on screen. Everyone, let's scan the code. Okay, our first question is, what is the first word that comes to mind when you hear HIV? We've got a few coming in. I think some people are still logging in. Everyone online should also be participating as well. I'm seeing some words like stigma. Yes, that is a big one. Fear. Hesitation. I think I saw why me. Okay. I'm also seeing some words that might reveal some of the stigma that we have, or maybe some what we think that other people are not understanding. Like I'm seeing words like ignorance, for example. Okay, let's go to the next question now. Okay. Which of the following statements about HIV is a myth? So our statements, okay, yeah, we've got some answers coming in. I think some people here know their stuff. So we have our questions of, can HIV be spread through mosquito bites? People living with HIV can live long, healthy lives with treatment. HIV can't be transmitted through casual contact, and undetectable equals untransmittable, U equals U. So, like I said, I think a lot of people know their stuff here, and the answer is HIV cannot be spread through mosquito bites. Okay, let's go to the next one. Next question. Okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you in your sexual health knowledge? With 1 being completely unconfident and 10 being very confident. Let's see where we're at today. And we're hoping to see an improvement by the end of the day. Okay, we've got some live feedback here. Okay, it might actually be a scale of 1 to 5. We've got most people at a 3.6. Okay, so we've still got some room for improvement, and that's why we're here to de-blur things. Let's go to our next question. Okay, do you think HIV stigma exists in your workplace, community, or school? Yes, no, or maybe. We've got some quick answers of yes. Okay, so that's exactly why we're here today. We're hoping that you guys can become advocates and leaders in your own communities. And with some of the discussions we're going to have today, and even some of the workshops, we're going to give you tools and tips of how you can confront stigma in your community or in your school, for example. And we're hoping to motivate you to become a leader, to start your own initiatives. Okay, let's go to the next question. Okay. I think we're on the, next question, I think we're on the wrong one. Okay. Do you know how to be an effective advocate and why? We've got a simple yes. I think some people are typing their answers. Someone says, I don't know. No. Okay, that's exactly why we're here today. We're going to get tips on how we can become advocates. Some people are saying, not really, not completely. Well, we've got someone saying, yes, I've been doing it for 30 years. Okay, I think I know who some people might be, who might have experience. Someone says, not yet. Okay, well, you guys are in the right place today. And hopefully, by the end of the conference, you're feeling more confident in that. Okay, let's see if we have another question. Okay, what do you hope to de-blur today? Let's think, is there any goals you have? Like, what do you want to learn? What do you want to clear up? What do you hope to de-blur today? And tomorrow as well, because we hope you'll be here tomorrow. Stigma, misconceptions, HIV financing. Okay, I've got a treat for you. Tomorrow, our development manager, Tad, is actually going to be running a workshop on fundraising. So that person, I suggest you attend that workshop. Okay, someone says, what consent is really like? Also, you're in the right place. We've actually got a session today about consent. Okay, what else? Youth leadership. Amazing. Okay, I've got someone who said laws. So today, we're actually going to have someone who is an expert on HIV disclosure laws and consent laws. Okay, I think we've got a big word cloud now. Let's see if we have any other questions. Okay, next question, if we have it. Okay, that's the end. So thank you guys for engaging with that. I think we can see that some people already have an idea of maybe some more well-known things, like HIV can't be spread through a mosquito bite. But a lot of us here today, maybe we feel like there's some room for improvement in our confidence in being advocates and knowing where to start. And I think we saw through those word clouds that people are here for many different reasons, but I hope through our content, we're able to de-blur some things for you. So that's it for me from now. I hope you enjoy our itinerary, and I look forward to helping you de-blur. So I'm going to hand it back to Jaleel.
Very informative, very, very informative. We're going to take a short break now. Feel free to grab some coffee, a muffin, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes. Can we get some music too? Yeah, there it is.
of paper, you have to introduce yourself. The whole point of it is to get to know each other. So please ask each other's names and don't just go, hello, can you sign my card? That doesn't count. If that counts, you start over. Okay, thank you.
Yes, no, maybe. Deblurring consent, pleasure, and personal space. Ever worry your standards are too high or too low? Remember, you are the one in control. Yes, no, maybe. Deblurring consent, pleasure, and personal space. Ever worry your standards are too high or too low? Remember, you are the one in control of your life, your body, emotions, and boundaries. In fact, 8 in 10 young Canadians believe consent should be discussed at every stage of sexual interaction. In this session, you'll learn how to deblur the lines around consent, pleasure, and setting your boundaries. Are you ready to start the conversation?
I see there's still a few folks over at the breakfast bar. When you can, please make your way back over, and we are going to get started. Anybody with a yellow circle and a black dot over here. Middle table. This looks so fun. I should have got a bingo card. I'm feeling left out now. This table looks happy. Did you guys win? Hey, it's okay. So be happy. Don't worry. Be happy. Yeah, I would want the prize too. I heard it's a new car for every single person winning at that table. I know, I wish, right? You get a car. You get a car. Once again, we are about to start back up. Before we get into our session, we do have a little video that we want to show you, so if you can be seated, that would be ideal. Somebody called me. Oh, I see you. Are we ready? All right. In just a few moments, right behind me, or actually on the screens in front of you, you're going to see the Sex Lives Report for 2024. You may see a few familiar faces, but please turn your attention towards the screens.
Yes, it is possible. Even with strong pull-out game, the method is only about 80% effective.
I don't hate those odds.
Hold on there. This method relies heavily on the insertive partner's ability to predict and control the timing of withdrawal.
Well, unless you have a bunch of kids I don't know about, I'd say your game is pretty strong.
Well, sure. Pregnancy risk aside, proper condom use can prevent the spread of HPV, herpes simplex,
We hear you, Luna.
syphilis, hepatitis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, HIV.
Loud and clear.
Only 1 in 4 youth reported wearing condoms all of the time.
Okay, well, you've been tested, right?
No.
What?
Have you?
No.
Unsurprising. 7 in 10 young Canadians have never been tested for STIs or HIV.
Okay. Thank you, Luna.
So?
So? Yeah,
Yeah?
but you have to wear it.
You got it.
14% of sexually active Canadian youth have felt unsafe because someone pretended to wear or removed a condom without their
Whoa,
consent.
babe. I would never stealth you. Let's take our time.
Luna believes that trust and communication are the most important factors in satisfying and
I'm
pleasurable
gonna-
sex.
Yeah.
Requesting permission to join cuddle.
Thank you. I would like to now welcome our panelists for today so we could get started with our session. Please help me welcome Janika, Lydia, Sean, and Julian, please, to the stage. Oh, you thought the chair was for you.
Good morning, everyone. So this session is, sorry if I'm yelling, yes, no, maybe, deblurring consent, pleasure, and personal space. So my first question is actually for Sean. Sean, a lot of the feedback we hear about consent and legal frameworks is that it is often rigid, intimidating, or unknown. And a lot of people may not be familiar with the current laws and their rights. So for all of the youth here, what are some important things you think they should know about consent and HIV disclosure laws?
Sure. Okay, so first, if anyone's wondering, my name is Sean. I'm one of the litigation lawyers at HALCO, which is the HIV and AIDS Legal Clinic of Ontario. So I do a lot of work with people who are charged with non-disclosure of HIV or just have general questions. So I'll give a brief overview of the law before we go on to talk about consent. So HIV non-disclosure in Canada, there are laws around it with severe criminal consequences. So first thing to know is if you're looking in the criminal code, you're not actually going to find anything for HIV in there. What Canada has done is they sort of slotted non-disclosure of your HIV status before sexual activity under aggravated sexual assault, which is a very, very serious crime. It sounds very scary, and it is very scary, but there's easy ways to navigate that, and I'll get into that in a second. The logic behind it is aggravated sexual assault is sexual assault that wounds, maims, disfigures, or endangers the life of the person. And so what Canada has said is that engaging in sexual activity with someone when you pose a realistic risk according to the law, not according to science, but a realistic risk of transmission, then that's endangering the life of the person. So, sorry, I see you have a question?
I was gonna say, we almost went too far. We're gonna come back to this, but we don't want to give them too much just in the first session.
Yes.
But I think that is a perfect place to put a pin in it, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, cool. Next question.
It's for Lydia. I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Can you hear me?
No, I don't think it's on.
She's like the on button, Lydia.
I can hear you.
Oh, I don't see. Mine's got a light on.
Oh yeah, it should be on. Maybe
Oh.
closer to
I
your.
can
Oh
hear
yeah.
you.
Oh, okay. Cool. Okay. My name, I was like, who am I again? My name's Lydia. Pronouns are she, her. Thank you for having me here today. So I am a sexual health educator. I've been working in that sector for about 10 years now. Worked for the first few years of my career a lot in the HIV sector. So I worked with Somerset West Community Health Center as the African Caribbean and Black HIV prevention strategy worker for a few years. And then I went on to work provincially for the African Caribbean Council for HIV and AIDS in Ontario. And then from there went on to work at the Canadian Centre for Gender and Sexual Diversity, specifically working in the context of gender-based violence prevention for youth. And so a lot of my work in sexual health is focused not so much on sex, but more so around consent, making informed decisions about your body, understanding healthy relationships and how to navigate these things, understanding that our bodies are our own and what that means, even from a young age. So I work with people from anywhere from kindergarten to university and beyond. And so, yeah, really working in those sectors to try to give people the tools to make informed decisions about their bodies. And I also do content creation around sexual health on TikTok. And me and Janika were laughing because we were saying growing up we didn't have that kind of access to social media in that same way. And so we were remembering back in the day when it was like, there's this crazy video of blue waffle and like all these weird things, which some people might be too young to know what that means. But so yeah, we were saying that now when you have people like myself and Janika who make this kind of content around de-blurring some of these myths on social media, how helpful it can be for youth to have that kind of like accessible, informal approach to accessing this information.
Lydia's content is really good. If you have TikTok, you should watch it. It's great.
I have not checked out her TikTok, but I do agree with you. I think it is very helpful in the tools that we have. We're gonna come back to that with more information later.
So based on all of the experience that you just talked about, it's similar to what, wow, I'm losing where I'm, it seems like you have a lot of experience working with youth. So what advice can you share about navigating boundaries, understanding consent, and embracing pleasure confidently?
Yeah, I love that question. The thing that comes to mind for me first and foremost when it comes to setting boundaries for yourself in the context of sexual interactions or romantic interactions in general is that it's not a universal experience. Like there's no one size fits all when it comes to consent, which is why I love that the theme for this year's conference is de-blur, because it's about clarifying things more, but it's not necessarily meaning that you're gonna get to just one place where everything is the same for everybody, right? It's like it's about clarifying it more for yourself. And so for me, I think about the fact that there's so much nuance when it comes to consent because we're humans having human interactions, right? And there's nuance in that. So there can't just be a yes, no, this is how it looks, this is how it doesn't look, because it changes for all of us. I know we were talking a little bit earlier backstage about the fact that like there are some situations where there's people who I feel safe enough with them that I know I've had partners in the past where I'm like, yeah, I may be a little tipsy, but if I call you, I want to do this right now. Whereas there's some people where I'm like, don't even hold my hand if I'm drunk. I don't know you like that. Like, I don't feel safe with you like that, right? And it depends on all these different kinds of nuances and relationships that you have with people and the kind of safety that you build with your sexual partners and romantic partners. And I think a lot about the fact that there's so much nuance there, especially when we consider components of race and racism. And I talk a lot about sexual racism in the work that I do. And I bring that up because I'll get into a little story, give you a little tea. So the first time I had sex, I was 15, and the person that I had sex with was a boy, and a cis boy, and he was white. This is important to the story. And I remember that we both had said yes, we both had checked off that consent kind of marker in that way, so it felt, okay, this is consensual. But then afterwards, I noticed things like him telling people, I heard back from people that he said having sex with me meant that he gained his black belt. Or, right. Or I found my name in his phone under ghetto booty.
Stop.
Or I noticed him saying certain things to other people that were very fetishizing racial remarks about me and about my body. And so even though we both said yes to the act, I wasn't able to, he didn't give me the opportunity to make an informed decision because I didn't know that I was just a racial conquest that he was checking off his bucket list. If I knew that information, that might have impacted whether or not I chose to say yes to engaging in sex with him, right? And so that was clear for me that yes and no, yes means yes and no means no isn't enough, right? And because if I'm saying no and I'm, as a black person and you're racist, what kind of validity does my no have when you don't even see me as human? And we talked a little bit earlier, Sean, you and I were talking a little bit about the fact that different people's no holds different power. There's so many things that play a part of that. You're so many different parts of your identity that will impact how people view your no. And so that's what led me to working during my undergrad degree at Brock University. I co-founded a group, grassroots organization called Decolonize and Deconstruct, and it was all BIPOC students, grad students, undergrad students, with the help from some professors, and we pretty much provided decolonial consent education because we recognized that race and racism were components that weren't often brought in when we saw surface level campaigns like yes means yes and no means no.
Just before, go ahead.
Sorry. I just wanted to say, because we only have 10 minutes in this session, we do want to hear from Julian and then come back to go in depth
For sure.
of all of your specialties, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
So Julian, the last question's for you. As someone living with HIV and someone who has experience with disclosures and boundaries, similar to what I've asked Lydia, can you share how your intersectional identity and lived experience plays a role in the way you think and navigate relationships, personal boundaries, and conversations around consent, as well as personal space?
Right. Okay. Hello. Hope I have a hard time with this mic. Okay. My name is Julian. I use he, him pronouns. Since I have limited time, I guess I can use a quick real-world example, a couple of them. Back to our Mentimeter questions. Mosquito bites is the myth. Contactless, handshakes. There's no legal duty to disclose before you shake someone's hand. And also, because it is the season, though, it is highly recommended maybe we do more hand washing because influenza, COVID. Disclosure, consent, there's lots of intersectionalities to that. It might be harder to disclose one's status. Hearing the echo of my voice is a little bit strange. Just because, you could be a queer person, already marginalized, Black, Indigenous, a person of color. There's lots of layers to it that could make it harder to disclose, but what I find is that the more you do it, the easier it gets, and it does get better. In my workplace where I work, like the second shift that I had with one of the management, she apparently worked in cybersecurity, hope she doesn't see this. She said, "Julian, I just want you to know that I Googled you and I know all about you," and that just put a stop to my heart. When she said that, it basically means that she knows about my history of HIV criminalization and incarceration. When I was 20 years old, I was criminalized and incarcerated for aggravated sexual assault for HIV non-disclosure. And, I'm like, oh, really? At my workplace, like the new job, like everybody got to know my business? That's fine. It gave me an opportunity to say, okay, well, this is the parameters of what that charge means in Ontario and Canada, what it means, what they think they're trying to do, and what they are doing and what they're not doing. What they are doing is harming people living with HIV. They are taking away the access for people looking to go get tested, because if you know you could potentially be criminalized, why would you want to find out your status? And it doesn't do anything to prevent future HIV transmissions. It's just harmful law based on archaic science. But with platonic relationships with friends, if you have, close friends, people that you click with, or people who are, about it, who are knowledgeable, not ignorant. But ignorance is fine too, because that's also an opportunity to educate. Just meeting your group of people in small conversations, like mosquito bites is a myth of HIV transmission, or not having to tell everybody you meet on the street, "Hi, I'm so-and-so and I'm HIV positive." There are boundaries that you can keep to yourself that are personal. My workplace is not one of those. Unfortunately, that's a missed opportunity to keep that to myself. But, whenever there's people that you meet or people that are in your circle, you can choose to keep things personal, to not share as a boundary, and keeping that, essence of mystery, because, your HIV does make you sexy and mysterious, and not everybody got to know your business. Maybe if the news is already out there, like for me, then that train has passed. But it creates an opportunity for people to learn about me and say, "Oh, that's so interesting, tell me more." And they can realize, what happened to you is wrong, or, "Oh, those HIV laws need to be changed." And they sort of have, since my case. But yeah, it's a good opportunity to share your story, and it helps with consent between any types of relationships, platonic, romantic with partners, or really just anyone that you meet. It just takes one motion to share a small bit a part of yourself, that story of your, living with HIV. And, there's some people who are understanding and some people who aren't. And when we know what we want from what we don't want, we can further into the world the notion of creating a world that aligns with our ideas and values that push towards betterment. So that's all.
Thank you for sharing, first and foremost. Yeah, for sure. I want to come back to Sean. May I ask Julian a question before we come back? So, when your boss had invaded your privacy and gone completely behind your back, is there anything you can do to rectify that, to get comeuppance, maybe not comeuppance, but maybe like some kind of accommodation?
Accommodation. I mean, honestly, she said that she worked in cybersecurity. If you're seeing this at some point, I'll probably be showing it to her actually later on, because we're like this, but it could just be workplace trauma bonding. But she's cool. But it did like shock me at first, and I was like, oh, fuck, like this place really, like at my workplace. But you know what? Since like my incarceration, criminalization for non-disclosure, when I had rejoined like apps and stuff, people had recognized me in my hometown. I made the front page of our newspaper, and so people were always like harassing me, messaging me, saying things that I don't want to hear, and I've been able to sort of separate those things and not let it bother me over the years, because it's going to be I'll be living with HIV for 10 years since that happened. So really, is there anything to do about that? Like, no, now can make HIV jokes kind of, and say to her, you can't say these jokes, I can say them, and you can appreciate that I'm telling you this. And she'd be like, okay. But I don't know, is there anything that I want from these people because they know my status? Like, no.
Thank you.
Not
Thank
much.
you. So, coming back to Lydia, because I did cut you off before, we can dive into your personal experiences and what you would like to share. Please, don't hold back. Sorry about that.
I think the most important thing people need to know about the law is how to sort of navigate it. So it really comes down to your viral load and making sure that you are on top of your health, you stay in good contact with either HIV specialist or a doctor, and you stay on top of taking medication regularly. So what the law says is if you've been on medication for 6 months and your viral load is below 200, then legally, not necessarily scientifically, because the law is not caught up with science, it's quite behind, but legally, you are not able to transmit the virus if it's below 200, and again, meds for at least 6 months. So if that's your situation, it doesn't matter what type of sex you're having, if it's unprotected, protected, tons of people, it doesn't matter. You do not have to disclose your status. That is your information, because you are not, according to the law, putting anyone at risk of transmission. If your viral load is between 200 and 1500, then you have to disclose unless you use a condom properly and it doesn't break. And then if it's above 1500, no matter what, you always have to disclose. That's what the law is currently. And the reason is basically, whoever you're engaging in sex with, if they're engaging in sex with you and they're therefore, according to the law, at a risk of contracting HIV, then they haven't properly consented to that sexual activity. They haven't consented to the risk, according to the law. So that's why you have to disclose in these situations. But for most people, once they find out they're HIV positive and they get on medication, very quickly, for the majority of people, their viral load will start to go down. After 6 months of this, you have no obligation legally to disclose your status anymore. That doesn't mean your partner won't run off to police and tell them. This happens actually quite often, where someone panics and they go to police and say, my partner's HIV positive, they never told me. So this is another reason why it's really important to get regular viral load testing, like every 3 to 6 months, because then you call HELCO, we can get you in touch with some criminal lawyers, and we just provide that evidence from the doctor to the police and basically say, there you go, there's absolutely no case, and it should go away. So really the main takeaway is just It's really scary and it's really easy to just sort of ignore all of this because the consequences are severe and it's terrifying to think about being criminalized for your health status. But that is the reality we live in, so the main takeaway is just take agency of your own health, stay up to date in it, take your medications, and speak with your healthcare providers so that you are aware of your status and your obligations so that you can avoid any kind of consequences.
Janika, I need to apologize. I got caught up in my own curiosity and started asking our panelists my own personal questions.
great.
Please take it away and run it, please.
Don't apologize for being curious ever. I wanted to know the answer to that too, so thank you. The last question I have is open to anyone who wants to answer. But the word no often carries stigma or creates discomfort in conversations around consent. How can we collectively reframe no as an empowering rather than a negative response?
I feel like you're the perfect one for this.
That's a great question. I have a couple different feelings about this. One question that I would often get, he's like, one question that I used to get a lot, especially when I was doing a lot of workshops, was, during, sexual interactions, I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer by saying no or by doing this, and how can I reframe it or how can I make no feel sexier? And my first immediate response is kind of like, not everything gets to be sexy, right?
Yeah.
Not everything gets to be cute. Sometimes you just need to be taken seriously. And so while there are ways that we can kind of shift from just it being no, right? Like sometimes it might not be no, but sometimes it might sound different, but I don't know if we need to always reframe things to make them sexier, right? Like I think these are real serious conversations that people need to be having, and it might not come out in the word no or yes. And yeah, again, as I talked about, consent is so nuanced. But yeah, like I don't know that I care for it to feel more comfortable for my partner if I'm saying no, right? Like I understand that there's some negativity attached to that word. But like, isn't that kind of the point? Like, like it's no, I'm saying no. And so, yeah, but on the other side of that, I think that there's a lot of different ways that we can reframe language to make it feel less awkward sometimes when it comes to sex. So for example, when people say, if I want to check in and I want to have ongoing consent, how do I not stop during the middle of sex and like, I'm not going to hand out a contract every time we do a new position? And I'm like, no, but maybe you'll say things like, does this still feel good? Are you still up for trying this? How are you doing? How are you feeling? Like, do you want to try this? Or like, there's ways that you can use language to, again, transition kind of easier during sex and not so awkwardly. But when it comes to the word no, yeah, I think it's okay for it to be just that, to be no. Yeah.
If I can add on to that, if we do have to make things
Like palatable.
sexy
Yeah.
or like delicious, I think there is some sort of appeal to my partner being like, hey, like what do you like, or asking about
Yeah.
it. He's also in the audience. Hey, boo. Love that you do this. Or like, there's also something so attractive in like, I'm someone who dates men, their vulnerability in like,
Yeah.
I don't know how to ask you
Right.
what you like, so let's try and figure that out together. And we talked a little bit about this downstairs as well in terms of like yes and no and it being very surface level. But there are people who are nonverbal also because of our lived experience or just our experiences with harm. Like sometimes when we are in situations where we feel unsafe or uncomfortable, no is not accessible.
Right.
So paying attention to like our body cues or using safe words if that's something else, or even like snaps or taps or just some other form of like gesture or our body language that can signify if we're enjoying something or if we're not.
Love that.
Does anybody else want to add on?
Sure, I'll add to that. No is a very important word, and it's also a very underused word, and sometimes we even feel shame, embarrassment, or other like negative feelings for not being a yes person. And no is an important boundary to set up, and it helps to communicate what it is that you want, what you don't want, it helps like define the realm of what you're okay with, what you're not okay with, to let other people know what you're okay with, what you're not okay with. So that discovery of what is right and what is not right, and letting others know that. No is very underused. We should all take a look in the mirror and tell ourselves like, okay, I will not do something today, like something that you don't want to do, instead of saying like, not like, oh, I don't want to shower, I don't want to do my laundry. Or maybe some days it's, yeah, it's depressive, whatever, it's a no shower day, no laundry day, but we say no to other things when people are asking too much of ourselves, asking for us to give ourselves, give back. Sometimes we do it too much out of free will. We do it willingly, where we just want to, be there for someone, but we're being there for that someone, and you're giving a little bit more of yourself each time, and it really takes away from your essence of who you are. Don't want to say that it takes away from your humanism, because that's not the case, but it takes away from you. It's draining, can become exhausting. So, it's good to have that boundary, to take the time to tell people, like, no, I cannot do that. Maybe I should learn that myself. I'm always, taking people's shifts at work, but you know what? Money is money, and what are you going to do sometimes? But, when you can, take time to say, no, I need to do something for myself, because that's the most important. You have to look out for yourself, because if you can't look out for yourself, how are you going to help other people when the time comes? So.
Can I add something
please.
I love that Julian said no is so underused. Like, I feel like we are not at a place yet where no is respected and used enough for us to even consider what it would look like to reframe it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we don't even say it enough now. Like, and then especially when you bring in intersections of identities, like if you're a racialized person, if you're a queer person, if you're a trans person, where you already feel like you have to shrink yourself so much in this society, on this side of the world, we already, one, our no's are often invalidated, but two, don't know how to say it in a way where whether it's in work, whether it's in our sexual relationships, whether it's in our familial relationships. And so I feel like, again, like it's so underused that that's also, I want it to be used more. I love reframing language, but I do want us to be able to actually just say that word more, and like feel some empowerment within that.
On the contrary to that, obviously in like an ideal world, the answer, if you're told no, is to just respect it and move on. But what advice would you give to someone when they, like, on how to navigate receiving a no from a partner? Anyone is open to answer.
Sure. So telling people no is one thing, and now when we're asking of people for things, or we're on the other end where we're being told no, sometimes it can seem hard to respect those boundaries depending on who the person is. Like if it's, for example, like my brother, I ask him for things all the time, and he'll tell me no, or he'll say like, leave my room, like, he wants his time after work, or we're tired or whatever. And I just miss him, and I want to see him and hang out with him, but it's like, okay, respect his boundary. Julian, go jog off, find something else to do, watch TV, style a wig, paint your nails, I don't know, like find something else to do, just don't bother him. But there's other situations when you're being told no, like say if it's with romantic partners, and you ask a question and someone tells you like no, they're not into something, or no, they don't want to do that. It's like, okay, are you going to push them and ask them like, okay, how's there a way I can sort of get around this and get what I want? That generally does not work out. It'll further upset the person, romantic or platonic, when you're negotiating, things like, I don't know, you want to meet your friend wants to go to Starbucks, and you're telling them, no, I don't want to go there. And then they'll say, okay, how are we going to find a middle ground? You say, oh, just what if we have coffee at my place? And they say, sure. There you go. You mediated and you found an alternate solution than going to the mermaid lady. So, there's lots of ways. Those are very, broad examples, but there's lots of ways to handle that no. And, it doesn't always have to be like a harsh thing to you. It's, someone said no, that's them exercising their right to take care of themselves the way you'd want to take care of yourselves when you tell people no. So, everybody deserves that opportunity because it is an underused word. And when that word is used on you, we should also be respecting of no. Yeah.
Thank you. If I can also add on to that, it's like similar to when we're setting boundaries with family, friends, people we love. I think our ego tells us to take it as like, oh, they hate us. They don't want to be friends with me. But it's actually like unearthing so much opportunity for you to have a more fruitful relationship with them because they care enough to be like, hey, I actually don't like this, or I don't want to do this, and even offering like an alternative or a suggestion for something else. So your partner saying no to you is like, I feel like in a sense, it's them feeling comfortable enough that they can even say no and feel safe enough to say no with you, which is what all relationships should be. Anyways. I wanted to ask Sean, and maybe Julian, you can add on to this too, but for someone that has been like criminalized, what do you have suggestions on like language of how to even have that conversation with a partner afterwards? Because sometimes people may hear criminalized and be like, I don't want to pursue a relationship with this person, or automatically attach like a bunch of negative like attributes to the person.
Right. When they meet someone who's previously been charged, been convicted, might be on a sex offender registry, something like that. Those are really hard, especially because unfortunately the onus to sort of explain what happened is really on the person who was criminalized, and it shouldn't be that way. But it's a highly stigmatized thing in our society. And unfortunately, it does sort of fall to the person who has that history.
It does take two to tango, or more.
It does.
It does more.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier, unfortunately, that the more conversations you can have with people and the more, just in general, about HIV stigma and things like you can't get it from a mosquito bite, you can't get it from sharing a sweater. And really what the law is, that the law is not remotely up to date. The law is not in line with science. We get a lot, there's a lot of people who have been charged. I don't know your circumstances, I'm not asking, but we get a lot of people who have been charged who were on meds for like 5.5 months, were undetectable from week 2, and they didn't 100% know the law, but they started seeing a new partner. Maybe they had sex right before their 6-month kind of cutoff window, and then boom, suddenly they're 3 months in a penitentiary, or 3 years in a penitentiary. They're on a sex offender registry. There's news articles splashed around about a terror going through the community. And it's not, it's just someone who was perfectly healthy, not posing a risk to anyone, having sex. And it's 100% based in stigma. It's not based in science. It's not based, there's no other laws for things like transmission of herpes or other things. This is purely based on HIV stigma. And it's really just trying to create a dialogue and a conversation society about what the law looks like and what HIV actually is like. It's a manageable chronic condition. It's not scary. To try and change people's response to it. And unfortunately, that kind of does start with the HIV community and advocates and allies.
I think the scariest part of living with HIV would be the last thing you said is changing people's ideas and thoughts around what it means to be HIV positive, because that is scary, because you have to now take that power of activism and advocacy to change someone's thoughts to their words and eventually their actions. How can you bring this person on your side to be an ally? My story is very unique, and I'm very, very, very fortunate for my outcome. But of course, nobody would have known that I was HIV positive if I wasn't already being open about it. And worst place ever, open about it at the workplace. So I should have maybe just kept my mouth shut. But my boss at the time wanted to sleep with me, whatever language you'd like to use. And I was basically like, no, I'm working with you. No, it's not gonna happen. And then some other guy who's not working with me, I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do this. And I thought, okay, I can keep this one thing to myself because he wants to use a condom, whatever, this or that. And then he didn't want to use the condom. And then I thought, okay, well, am I gonna say anything now? Because now you wanna take it off? I'd rather try to keep myself safe. Of course, that didn't work out in my favor because the boss that I told no sorry had told this other guy because he knew him, friend of a friend, social situation, and then it just went downhill from there, and then back uphill, so it's all right. But yeah, for every person, it's definitely a unique circumstance to be in, and each time that I mention it or talk about it, it just helps people understand a perspective of the realities of things that people can face or deal with. And it seems like now I think about it, and I was like so upset at the time, not even upset, like depressed, scared, like, you know, the possibility and the idea of, oh, being incarcerated for a lifetime. And now I think about it and I think, oh, what a stupid, dumb thing. Like, do you disclose to your English teacher before you're writing your exam, like, oh, I have diabetes? Like, no, unrelated. No realistic possibility of transmission, undetectable, U equals U. Why do I gotta say anything? You don't really need to say anything to your tattoo artist, because they're all gonna wear gloves, new needles, isopropyl alcohol. Like, why do you gotta say that? Not needed. Your doctor, maybe it's a good idea because your doctor is there to help you. They want to give you the right medication. They want to know about your history so they can best help you. That's okay, that's cool. If you don't want to tell your doctor, that's fine, but probably maybe not in your best idea. But like, you know, they also have specialists for HIV, so it doesn't have to be your general practitioner, not kind of going on a tangent, but like, you know, there's different places, different people, who you decide to tell, who you don't decide to tell. Yeah, criminalization, like, shouldn't happen, but it does. But there has been a lot of changes. I know that the law used to be only in particular to condomless or with a condom for sex, only pertaining to oral or vaginal sex, depending if you're the insertive or the receptive partner. I think now they were also had not mentioned like receptive or insertive anal sex, so that was not included for the duty to disclose. So that was like gray area. It's been so long, and I don't even really kind of bother with it anymore because my status is on like Grindr apps that people know about. It's there, so it's your decision to do whatever you like. But Sean, could you maybe let folks know, is the acts of sex, is it specified now to oral, vaginal, anal, whether condom is or isn't used, or is it just under 200,
It's just
6 months?
Yeah, it's just the viral load, really. So it's the, like I said before, under 200 and 6 months meds. Doesn't matter if it's unprotected or protected, oral, anal, vaginal, doesn't matter. High risk sex activities, again, doesn't matter as long as you're under 200 and on meds for 6 months. Between 200 and 1500, as long as you're using a condom properly, and then above 1500, you always have to disclose. So they don't have that differentiation anymore.
And like chaperone, you're hot to go. That's great. Do you know when those laws had like sort of changed, come into effect, like when they updated to the newest one? Because, oh my God, when I was criminalized, that was in 2016. Oh my God.
Okay,
So
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, you read my case?
I think so.
Love it.
I'm pretty sure the change was, God, I got
2021?
2018.
2018?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how it is currently.
I know,
There's
yeah.
conversations to eventually change it, but there's just, honestly, there's not enough public support for people to care and get involved, and there's not enough people who actually even know this is a law. Because again, it's not in the criminal code, and it's not something that's generally talked about outside of HIV communities. So the more conversations that can happen, hopefully we'll eventually get to a place where this can change. There are advocacy groups, including HELCO, who are trying to change the law.
Thank you, Halco.
There's less prosecutions that are happening in the last few years, so that's progress.
I'd like to think that I'm like a little bit of like a, I don't want to say celebrity. What are they called when you're like a pirate? Notoriety. I have a bit of notoriety when it comes to like putting in like the motion for change. And I feel like, oh, my case did like a little something to better the laws in Canada for HIV non-disclosure. So I'd like to think that maybe it wasn't. Maybe they've always been working on things since like probably 2012. Even if like for always, there's always activism and advocacy, you know. We have free sexual health supplies, condoms, even like tampons, things like that because of the work of HIV and AIDS activists back when, you know, doing die-ins where, you know, you go into courthouses and you just lay on the floor because the bleak reality is okay, are you going to have these people who are alive going there for show and you're going to have the police take out these people, activists who are lying on the body, or you're going to have actual dead bodies on the floor that you have to fill the morgues and take these people. So it was a lot of that, that notion that created change. So I'd like to think that there's always going to be good change to come. So that's always something to look forward to.
Thank you all. That's all the time we have, but I wanted to thank you all for your commitment to this work and your commitment to reducing the stigma. So I don't know where you went, but thank you.
I want to also thank you all panelists, my moderator, for such an informational conversation. Now we're going to do something a little fun. As you can see, you guys should have a ball at your table. All right, you could begin dodgeball. I'm kidding. It's going to be for hot potato. The way this is going to work, and we encourage people that are on the stream to also keep posting your comments, because as soon as that music stops, your question will be posted on our screen. So make sure you're playing. But people that are in the room, you're going to keep passing it around until it stops, and whoever it stops on, I'm going to have a question for you. And I should also note, you cannot skip the question. No matter what. Ready? You want me? Oh, I was going to take it for y'all. Stop.